Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the final luncheon of the 53rd Sea Air Space Lunch with the Undersecretary of the Navy. Please rise for the presentation of colors and remain standing for the playing of our national anthem. Advance the colors. Retire the colors. Our invocation this afternoon will be led by Chaplain Captain Daniel Mode, United States Navy.
I invite you to pray with me. Eternal Father, as we gather for this luncheon, we ask your blessing upon all gathered here and upon the food that we are about to receive. We pray that these days of the Sea, Air, and Space exhibition may be fruitful to all participants and benefit our sea services. That from here each of us learn, compete, and win at and from the sea. We especially ask you to impart your blessing upon those who have shown themselves leaders in maritime safety. Each recipient of the Admiral Vern Clark and General James L. Jones Safety Awards have distinguished themselves as innovators and have created a culture of safety within the Navy and the Marine Corps. We ask this blessing upon all gathered here in your abiding and powerful name. Amen.
Please be seated. Would you please join me in thanking the chaplain, the United States Navy Band, and the United States Navy Color Guard coordinated by Naval District Washington. And now, ladies and gentlemen, as you hear your particular branch of the Sea Services represented in song, would you please stand proudly as the United States Navy Band continues with the Sea Service medley. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 49th National President of the Navy League of the United States, Alan Kaplan.
Good afternoon, everyone. As our Sea Air Space Exposition draws to a close, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for making this year our most meaningful show yet. Our Sea Air Space maritime community is world-class, and our commitment to our sea services and their families is evident from all we have done here together as a team. I'd like to thank our distinguished guests, including our flag and general officers, for being here with us today. I would also like to thank our sponsors for this luncheon: Orbital ATK, BWX Technologies, General Atomics Aeronautical Systems, Janes by IHS Markit, and Airbus. Thanks to your support of our mission, special events like this one are made possible. It is now my honor to introduce the final keynote speaker of our 2018 Sea Air Space Exposition, the Honorable Thomas Modly, the Undersecretary of the U.S. Navy. Mr. Modly has a long and impressive career that includes his early years as a Navy pilot and a prior appointment as the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Financial Management. Most recently, he served as the Managing Director in PricewaterhouseCoopers' National Security Practice. He is a persistent voice in making sure our troops are properly modernized and agile to win every time. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Undersecretary of the U.S. Navy, Mr. Thomas Modly.
Okay, I don't know what's more disconcerting, trying to speak at the end of a conference after lunch, or having lunch with a 20-foot projection of your face showing up on the screen in front of you, which made me notice that the tie I'm wearing in that picture is the same one I'm wearing today. So anyway, thank you so much for the introduction, and good afternoon. It's a true honor to have the opportunity to speak with you today. I've been to this conference many times. And if you love the Navy, it's a great place to hang out for a couple days. Just to see the level of commitment from our industry partners and from folks around the interested communities in the Navy to see what they're doing to help us build and maintain an agile and dominating force in the maritime area. It's also an honor and a privilege to have the opportunity for myself to serve again in the United States Navy. I took my original oath of office in the Navy as a midshipman in 1979. And back then, the world was a dangerous place, we all thought. But today's world is even more complex, and the threats to our security even more varied across a very broad and broader spectrum. Some of these threats are driven by rogue actors, such as Al-Qaeda and ISIS, who employ unconventional means of war that have advanced their potential to have even larger destructive and disruptive effects on our civilized society. We see this across every area of the world in which our naval forces must engage. These transnational actors inspire each other and use the tools of modern technology and social media to build connections across borders that threaten our people and our allies and friends around the world. And some of these rogue actors, as we're learning, are actually nation states, like North Korea and Iran, who have determined that their paths to survival are through an ascendance to great power status of their own making. Both of these nations have chosen to do so by directly and indirectly confronting the United States in order to demonstrate our vulnerabilities and in return to elevate their own prestige. More alarming, though, in recent years we have seen changes that have eclipsed the dangers these rogue actors and rogue nations have presented over the past decade. If you've had a chance to read our new National Defense Strategy, you will see this emerging strategy is clearly articulated. Its implications are alarming, and rightly so. They will drive investments in our defense capabilities going forward. In short, we are re-entering an era of great power competition on a global scale. And so we must be focused on responsibly developing forces that protect our people and our interests and our friends and allies around the world. The National Defense Strategy is a very cogent and realistic document, in my opinion. It is aligned with the National Security Strategy of the United States, which was published just a few weeks before it, and it very plainly directs the Department of Defense to compete, deter, and win alongside our allies and partners. It is a strategy that recalls President Reagan's commitment to preserve peace through strength while enabling decisive victory in conflict if necessary. It is the Department's preeminent strategic document, and it will set the course for the Department of the Navy for years to come. As the strategy describes, great power competition has reemerged as a central challenge to U.S. security and prosperity, and this geostrategic fact is demanding prioritization through some very tough strategic choices. It is increasingly clear that China and Russia want to shape a world consistent with their authoritarian models, and they will use whatever tools that are available to them, both lethal and non-lethal, legal and illegal, to influence and coerce other nations' economic, diplomatic, and security decisions. While this strategy prioritizes the challenges from our strategy, prioritizes the challenges from China and Russia, it does not ignore the growing and pervasive threats from North Korea and Iran, and it is also continuing our commitment to defeat violent extremism and the horrors being perpetrated in the name of Salafist-based ideologies emanating from the Middle East. It is, in essence, a realistic strategy, but also a very ambitious one that cannot be executed without a significant commitment of national resources, and perhaps more importantly, a significant application of our own national resolve and a sense of urgency. As Secretary Mattis has stated, in a world awash in change and increasing threats, there is no room for complacency. History makes clear that no country has a preordained right to victory on the battlefield. The Secretary is certainly correct that there is no preordained right to victory. Rather, as we know, it occurs when a nation is prepared not only for the fight that it sees coming, but also when it is prepared for the fight that it does not see coming. So it follows that the NDS is structured to address the full range of adversaries that we may face in this rapidly changing security environment. Fundamental to the implementation of this strategy will be the preeminence of our maritime superiority, because as everyone in this room knows, America is and will always be a maritime nation. Command of the seas is central to our nation's security and prosperity, and our maritime forces will continue to be in great demand around the globe to ensure freedom of navigation, disaster relief and humanitarian assistance, and the application of lethal power if it becomes necessary. The National Defense Strategy's mandate for how we construct our naval forces must therefore reconcile three fundamental dichotomies. One, a return to great power competition, but not to the exclusion of other lesser threats. Two, an emphasis on lethality and readiness, but not to the exclusion of new platforms and technologies for the future fight. And three, a recognition that we must advance our own nation's interests and influence on the seas, but not to the exclusion of building alliances and partnerships that seek peaceful conflict resolution with preparedness for the use of decisive force with our partners if necessary. The United States Navy and Marine Corps must and will rise to this challenge, and we will do so by building a bigger, better, more networked, more talented, and more ready force. Thanks to the support of Congress, we can say we have already begun down this path to this future state of U.S. maritime supremacy. The FY17 budget arrested the decline in readiness that we'd experienced over the past several years. The FY18 budget made further dramatic commitments to restoring readiness, and we anticipate the FY19 budget will continue to increase lethality by building both capacity and capability. The NDS reaffirms the fact that the United States and our allies and partners rely on safe maritime operations worldwide. Forward deployed and forward stationed naval forces use the global maritime commons as a medium of maneuver, ensuring the routes of commerce remain free and open to everyone, assuring access to overseas regions, defending key interests in those areas, protecting U.S. citizens abroad, and preventing adversaries from leveraging the world's oceans against us. We must embrace the reality that protecting our interests on the seas is critical to our survival. And so we must fund our Navy with a long-term view that recognizes that almost all of our major investments will have long-term implications. Most importantly, we must recognize that short-term fluctuations in funding for capital investments can also have long-term implications to the overall fitness of our force. For example, we estimate that the 9 consecutive continuing resolutions that we've experienced over the last several years have cost the Navy nearly $4 billion due to contract inefficiencies and interruptions that managing from CR to CR inevitably cause. To restore readiness, increase lethality, and build capacity, as outlined in the budget request, we must end these inefficient boom and bust procurement cycles. Bust devastate workforce experience, they devastate efficiency and resiliency, making it difficult for us to rebuild capacity when we need it. When new ships are needed, rebuilding the industrial base and retrieving the requisite shipbuilding corporate knowledge and talent to do so adds significant time and cost to procurement, and sometimes they can't even be reassembled, given that people have moved on to other careers, other jobs, other areas of the country. In this regard, we are highly encouraged by and appreciative of the most recent bipartisan budget agreement and the FY18 Defense Appropriations Bill, and we look forward to working closely with the Congress to ensure we can return to more stable and predictable funding that allows us to make better strategic choices in the future. Among the most critical of such choices is how we address the basic fact that we need more ships. There is little debate over the fact that the pace of operations over the last 16 years have put an immense strain on our fleet, leading to significant challenges to our ability to effectively provide forward presence and project power. While I am confident that the Navy will always answer the call that the nation asks it to answer, the recent tragic events involving the USS Fitzgerald and the USS McCain have demonstrated that we must return to a condition in which we have enough well-maintained ships manned by well-trained, well-rested, focused, and competent crews to meet the relentless security demands placed on them by our geographic commanders. Our answer to the need for a larger number of ships can be found in the PB-19 Ship Acquisition Plan, which looks from FY 2019 to FY 23. This covers the basic period of the FYDP. This plan puts the Navy on a path to growing the fleet to 326 ships by FY 2023, which is a very respectable increase from our current fleet of 282. However, and more significantly, our 30-year shipbuilding plan illustrates how the realities of building a 355-ship Navy will be a much longer-term proposition. While the plan can achieve a 355-ship fleet, it is constrained by top-line funding we expect to see through the FYDP and beyond, in our best estimates of our current industrial capacity. Industry has stated to us clearly that they can flex upwards to meet a more aggressive schedule, but based on stable assumptions for these factors, we will not achieve this 355-ship level until the year 2052. An acceleration of this plan to achieve this number sooner is certainly possible, but it will require a much more aggressive funding approach, and one that must recognize that shipbuilding is just the first step in building a 355-ship fleet. In addition to building and commissioning these new ships, there will also be significant costs related to the acceleration of manning and maintaining them. These costs are not calculated in our 30-year shipbuilding plan itself. That just looks at the construction piece of it. Additionally, while we could accelerate, we also want to avoid the boom and bust cycles for our shipbuilding industry partners. Booms or buying too many ships in bulk ultimately lead to mass obsolescence when entire ships and classes of ships reach the end of their service lives at around the same time. Also, as a nation, we don't have the industrial shipbuilding capacity we once had in the past. Over the previous 5 decades, 14 defense-related new construction shipyards have been closed. 3 have left the defense industry, and only a single new shipyard has been opened. Today, the Navy contracts primarily with 7 private new construction shipyards to build the battle force we need in support of our national defense strategy requirements. These are the shipyards that will be called upon to build the 355-ship force. And we have calculated reasonable expectations for them when we think about capacity in our plan. The 30-year shipbuilding plan attempts to address this potential capacity problem by providing reliability and consistency needed for our industry partners to fulfill their orders efficiently and affordably with a highly skilled workforce. As currently constructed, the plan shows a smooth and steady procurement schedule for each class of ship across 30 years. This method of procurement will ensure the United States retains the industrial capacity and corporate talent to surge different types and classes of ships to address uncertainties in the security environment itself. It also allows for far more flexibility to integrate technological advances and avoid the problem of mass obsolescences, which I described earlier. Our ship acquisition plan demonstrates how the long-term nature of these investments presents us with a very difficult paradox. That paradox is that we are making commitments today to building ships that will sail in a maritime security environment 30 years from now, an environment that we really don't truly understand today. All we can say with some certainty about that future environment is that it's going to be different than the one we're in today. And so our plan has to balance stability with flexibility, current needs with future ones, and aspirations with fiscal realities. This is why when I'm asked about the 355-ship goal, I answer that the right number is probably something more like 355 plus. Because while we certainly need more seagoing platforms, we also need to increase their lethality and their ability to operate in a network fashion with both manned and unmanned assets that contain, restrain, confuse, overwhelm, and decisively defeat our enemies. A larger force is necessary, but a larger, more agile force will be the key determinant of success of our maritime strategy. So from my perspective, how we measure that plus is far more important than how we end up counting the number of ships that make up the 355 mix. That plus will be measured by how agile that future maritime force actually is. Specifically, how flexible and adaptable is it? How well does it collaborate and interoperate with allies and with unmanned assets or smaller combatant ships that don't fit nicely into the categories we have today or the categories we use to define battle force ships? These are things we probably haven't even thought of today. How fast are they, not just over and under the water, but in the information space? Or how quickly can they be reconfigured to address different types of threats? How transparent are they within the network of systems and platforms in which they operate, and how non-transparent and unpredictable are they for our adversaries? How innovative are the tactics they employ and the people who man the ships and devise those tactics? These are the critical questions we will ask ourselves as we build this new fleet, and we will demand that industry also consider these questions as they work with us to build it. In closing, I would like to say that building the agile maritime force we need to address the emerging challenges of this century will require a serious and critical self-assessment about how we in the Department of the Navy do things as an organization. We must reverse a culture of normalized deviation that exists in some parts of the department, a culture which accepts that which used to be unacceptable as a standard practice. We will do this by demanding stronger accountability from all levels of the department. This includes those whom we ask to command our ships and aircraft, those whom we ask to lead our Marines and Special Operations Forces in battle, and those whom we ask to deliver programs, both large and small, and especially those whom we ask to manage and account for the funds provided to us by the American people. Therefore, we will place a renewed emphasis on transforming our business mission to incorporate 21st century management methods and uses of technology that improve visibility and accountability to inform better risk-based decision-making and emphasize agility over bureaucracy. In my role as Chief Management Officer of the Department of the Navy, I intend to hit this hard. I'm going to develop an enterprise business system strategy that finally rationalizes the antiquated systems environment we operate today. We're going to take lessons learned from our first audit to drive business improvement priorities, not just audit-related priorities. We're going to implement business reforms that yield significant savings, not merely incremental ones, in order to free up capital to fund our largest capital requirements. We're going to leverage big data strategies to address major operational issues in our supply chain and human capital management. And we're going to drive a culture of agility and accountability and learning for all of our people. I've taken initial steps recently to elevate the leadership of financial audit and business transformation efforts to the highest level in the Secretariat to ensure we are taking an enterprise view of improvements to end-to-end business processes and business systems investments. The quote, "close enough for government work," is a phrase that I will not tolerate in the Department of the Navy because, frankly, that's not close enough to what we need to compete and win in this new environment we find ourselves in as a nation. I have also initiated a clean sheet review of our approach to education across the Navy and Marine Corps. We need to develop a learning culture in the Department of the Navy. We must embrace this as a core value. As many of you know, Ex Scientia Trident is the motto of the Naval Academy. Those words roughly translated mean through knowledge, sea power. As we think about education and its role in the future of the Navy and Marine Corps, no words seem more relevant to me than these. While we surely must invest in more ships and aircraft and submarines and armored vehicles and new missile systems, nothing will be more important than the investment we make in knowledge and in creating a force made up of people who thirst for it. Rapid technological advances are driving the basic requirements for this mandate, but knowledge is not purely defined by technical competence. For knowledge to truly produce sea power, we must create a culture in the Navy and Marine Corps that is committed to learning as a lifelong process and a lifelong passion. Such a culture is not merely defined by certificates or degrees accumulated at regular career intervals, but rather it is one that encourages innovation and risk-taking and produces sailors and Marines who are prepared to excel in circumstances that are characterized by uncertainty and adversaries who are unpredictable. In this regard, we are at a point in history not unlike that which was addressed by Captains Ernest King, Dudley Knox, and Bill Pye in their seminal report on naval education, which was published nearly 100 years ago in 1920. The report laid the foundation for the education of naval officers for years to come, with greater emphasis on developing officers with an understanding of strategy, policy, and national security thinking. It's hard to imagine an agile naval mind in today's national security context being capable of leading without having those characteristics. While I do not want to presume any conclusions that may come from this clean sheet review, I suspect some major course corrections are in order for the Department of the Navy, as they are for most every other public and private institution that expects to thrive and survive in this century. I'll conclude by citing one of the many memorable quotes of John Paul Jones that I like to mention whenever I have a chance to talk about the future of our Navy and Marine Corps team. Jones famously said, "Men mean more than guns in the rating of a ship." It loses nothing in translation when we paraphrase this quote by saying, "People mean more than weapons in the rating of a service." Jones' quote recognizes a profound point of truth that is even more relevant today than it was 200 years ago. Our maritime advantage is and will continue to be almost entirely dependent upon the quality of our people. It follows, therefore, that the agility of our future force will be almost entirely dependent upon the agility of the people we identify today to lead it into the future. Therefore, we must recruit, train, equip, and educate the most quick-minded, flexible, collaborative, innovative, and transparent people we can find. If we do this, we will set the Navy on the course for maritime superiority well into this century. I look to you as representatives of the broad ecosystem of our naval enterprise to help us push the limits of our thinking in this regard. We need you to help us build the maritime security the nation demands and the free world requires. Thank you for inviting me to speak at this forum. I hope to be back again next year, but you never know. God bless you and your families, and may God bless the sailors and Marines who go in harm's way on and under the seas, in the air, and on the land to keep us safe and free. Go Navy. I think I have some time for questions, so if anyone would like to ask a question, feel free to do so. Okay, everyone's just soaking it in. Okay, thanks very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
It is now time to present the safety awards for this year. We will begin with the Admiral Vern Clark Safety Award for the individual. We ask Mr. Gary Snyder to please come front and center.
While our guests are coming up on stage, I'd like to call the Chief Management Officer of the United States Navy, Mr. Motley, to come back up on the stage and be recognized, and thanks for all of his support and his remarks today. Please, sir. Mr. Secretary, on behalf of the Navy League of the United States, I want to present you with the Navy League Sea Bag as our thanks to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The Admiral Vern Clark Safety Award is intended to stimulate safety through ideas, suggestions, and programs that will reduce mishaps, injuries, and fatalities within the Department of the Navy by providing special recognition to those who best exemplify and advance a culture of safety. For his outstanding work to advance safety in the United States Navy, the 2017 Admiral Vern Clark Safety Award is presented to Mr. Gary D. Snyder, United States Navy. Mr. Gary D. Snyder's exceptional performance and leadership while serving at the Naval Diving and Salvage Training Center's safety manager contributed to the safety of more than 1,200 special operations and deep-sea divers who trained in the largest military diving facility in the world. In fiscal year 2017, the Naval Diving and Salvage Training Center safely conducted more than 18,800 high-risk air and mixed gas training dives. This achievement is directly attributed to Mr. Snyder's oversight of the command's occupational safety and health and high-risk training safety programs, which provide an individual within the command with clear lines of communication to the commanding officer for all safety-related matters. Mr. Snyder is a seasoned safety professional and a subject matter expert familiar with military diving operations, industrial safety, military and civilian training methods, training curricula objectives, including safety precautions, emergency operations, and training facilities and equipment. Mr. Snyder routinely demonstrates and shares his expertise and passion for safety by authoring a weekly 4-page safety newsletter, organizing annual safety stand-downs for staff and students, and completing all requirements for the DoD Joint Safety Services Safety and Occupational Health Training and CP-12 Professional Safety Certificate programs. By utilizing operational risk management and through Mr. Snyder's vigilance, NDSTC's ready and trained team mitigates risks to successfully reduce preventable mishaps. Mr. Snyder's outstanding professionalism, personal initiative, and loyal devotion to duty reflected great credit upon himself and are in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service and the Navy League of the United States. Presented this 11th day of April 2018, signed Alan Kaplan, National President, and the Honorable Thomas Modley, Undersecretary of the Navy. The Admiral Vern Clark Safety Award is intended to stimulate safety through ideas, suggestions, and programs that will reduce mishaps, injuries, and fatalities within the Department of the Navy by providing special recognition for those who best exemplify and advance a culture of safety. For outstanding work to advance safety in the United States Navy, the 2017 Admiral Vern Clark Safety Award is presented to Naval Construction Training Center, Port Jimenez, United States Navy. Naval Construction Training Center Port Jimenez was taking significant strides to ensure the safest, ready, and relevant training was delivered to over 3,300 Navy and Air Force students across 70 courses of instruction. Through an aggressive safety training program and a committed staff who exhibit and promote occupational safety and health awareness through insightful leadership, proactive initiatives, and training, newly assessed sailors and airmen develop safe work habits and behaviors which they will take with them into the fleet. These behavioral changes translate to a greater reduction in the probability of serious injuries and mishaps from the inherent occupational dangers, hazards, and risks associated with being part of the military and the Naval Construction Force. The command's investment toward safety awareness and risk management has resulted in sustained mishap rates below the Navy average. In the past 3 years, there have been 0 Class A or B mishaps, 0 on-duty lost time cases, 0 Class C on-duty mishaps, 3 Class C off-duty mishaps, 0 civilian mishaps, 0 private motor vehicle mishaps, and 1 off-duty motorcycle mishap. These sustained reductions in mishaps, costs, and time lost associated with injury have been minimized and have kept students in the classroom and staff members at work. Naval Construction Training Center Port Jimenez completed a fiscal year 2017 with an overall safety training compliance rate of 99%, including 100% compliance in risk management, recreational off-duty safety, traffic safety, safety on the job training, and web training, at 90% in safety occupational health classroom compliance. Individually and collectively, these statistics demonstrate a higher level of safety awareness through leadership, education, and training, and reflect that the safety and health of the staff and students is of prime concern and a core value within your command. The officers, enlisted men, civilian, and contractor personnel at Naval Construction Training Center Port Jimenez epitomize the Navy's safety mission. Members of the Naval Construction Training Center Port Jimenez have reflected great credit upon themselves and upheld the highest traditions of the Naval Construction Force, the United States Naval Service, and the Navy League of the United States. Presented this 11th day of April 2018, signed Alan Kaplan, National President, and the Honorable Thomas Modley, Undersecretary of the Navy. The General James L. Jones Safety Award is intended to stimulate safety through ideas, suggestions, and programs that will reduce mishaps, injuries, and fatalities within the United States Marine Corps by providing special recognition for those who best exemplify and advance a culture of safety. For his outstanding work to advance safety in the United States Marine Corps, the 2017 General James L. Jones Safety Award is presented to HM2 Oluisa Adiemo, United States Navy. HM2 Olushula Adiemo displayed a superior professional achievement and performance while serving as the Headquarters Regiment Assistant Safety and Environmental Chief, 1st Marine Logistics Group, and was established to provide responsive, quality logistics support to the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, Special Purpose Marine Ground Task Force, Joint Combined Forces, and federal agencies as directed through expeditionary means. HM2 enthusiastically managed the Commanding General's Safety Inspection Program in direct support of 7,900 Marines and sailors. Well-versed in safety regulations, he successfully completed 35 comprehensive safety inspections for 18 units and subordinate shops, identifying 87 discrepancies requiring corrective action plans and ensuring 100% compliance with Commanding General's initiatives and requirements. A passionate leader, his training and mentoring of 22 ground safety managers led to a 57% reduction in on-duty mishaps, 20% reduction in private motor vehicle mishaps, and a 44% reduction in sports-related mishaps. HM2's initiative, perseverance, and total dedication to duty reflected credit upon himself and was in keeping with the highest traditions of the Naval Hospital Corpsmen, the United States Naval Service, and the Navy League of the United States. Presented this 11th day of April 2018, signed Alan Kaplan, National President, and the Honorable Thomas Modley, Undersecretary of the Navy. The General James L. Jones Safety Award is intended to stimulate safety through ideas, suggestions, and programs that will reduce mishaps, injuries, and fatalities within the United States Marine Corps by providing special recognition for those who best exemplify and advance a culture of safety. For outstanding work to advance safety in the United States Marine Corps, the 2017 General James L. Jones Safety Award is presented to 1st Reconnaissance Battalion, United States Marine Corps. 1st Reconnaissance Battalion, 1st Marine Division has implemented and enforced a portfolio of hazard controls and risk management measures that have ensured its 447 elite Marines and sailors are presented with tough and realistic training while operating safely in a high-risk environment. Marines and sailors of 1st Reconnaissance Battalion have developed habits of thought and action that have significantly mitigated the high levels of risk encountered while accomplishing assigned mission-essential tasks, translating to a safer execution of real-world missions. These habits of thought and action directly translate to future reduction in serious injuries and mishaps while conducting the inherently life-threatening training that is associated with the Marine Corps Battalion. Through exceptional operational risk management, 1st Reconnaissance Battalion conducted over 100 live-fire range exercises in the course of a single year that included everything from static sniper and machine gun to dynamic breaching and platoon-sized room clearing. Through incomparable oversight, rigorous briefing, and unyielding maintenance, the 1st Reconnaissance Battalion Paraloft provided drop zone safety officers, static line jump masters, and free fall jump masters for a total of 6,254 high-risk jumps without major loss of equipment or injury to personnel, and improving the service life of over 1,000 parachutes, allowing for increased safe conduct of high-risk training. The Consolidated Dive Locker demonstrated an equally impressive safety record through the past 3 years, overseeing the conduct of 3,248 Mk25 rebreather dives, 3,017 scuba dives, and 278 chamber dives, while completing 6 recompression chamber certifications and a Mk25 class certification. This resulted in 3 years of mishap-free, high-risk diving operations and a 100% score with 0 discrepancies on 2 Naval Safety Center diving safety surveys. The Marines and sailors of 1st Reconnaissance Battalion have reflected great credit upon themselves and upheld the highest traditions of the Marine Corps, the United States Naval Service, and the Navy League of the United States. Presented this 11th day of April 2018, signed Alan Kaplan, National President, and the Honorable Thomas Modly, Undersecretary of the Navy. Please welcome Jim Bruins, Executive Director, Navy League of the United States.
Thank you, Undersecretary, for participating in this presentation of the Safety Awards. I want to thank our sponsors again, including Orbital ATK, BWX Technologies, General Atomics Aeronautics Systems, Janes and IHS Markit, and Airbus. This has been really a transformational year for us at the Navy League of the United States. You're beginning to see that transformation and feel that transformation. You're part of that transformation. Last year at this time, we had over 10,000 participants. This year at this time, at the present time, we have 15,000 participants at Sea Air Space. So thank you for your participation. We want to carry that energy forward. The galleries and the exhibits stay open until 3:30. We want to join you for Sea Air Space next year, and we hope that many of you who are exhibitors will renew with us and be instrumental in our success as we move the sea service story forward. We're doing some new things in 2018, 2019. I hope that each and every one of you will join us and that we look forward to seeing you back here for Sea Air Space 2019 in May. Thank you very much. Have a good day.